How well prepared are we to deal with whatever has been the fallout of Trump's presidency?
In some cases, we have a real worry. Because not because we cannot adhere to the demand, but because we haven't systematically cleared our processes, import and export process, and probably now is the time to do that they have a dependency on us, we have a dependency on them. And why don't we use this opportunity to do a little bit of our homework and get what we want?
In every adversity there is an opportunity, and if in this adversity called Trumpnado, if there is an opportunity, that opportunity, in order to be cashed in on, requires diligent homework. Hello and welcome back. In this edition of the Tracking Trends, we turn our focus to a topic that everybody is talking about: US President Donald Trump and his tariffs. And to do that, I have with me Professor Arpita Mukherjee of the Indian Council for Research in International Economic Relations, an independent think tank that advises the Indian government on several critical economic and trade affairs. Professor Mukherjee has been there for nearly 25 years, during which she has engaged on many activities at a governmental level across geographies, be it the ASEAN, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and of course, the United States. Thank you, Arpita, for joining us. Let's start asking you with a question: where do things stand? Because they change every day. So, as we speak, where do things stand?
uh, as we speak, thank you very much for inviting me for to this show, first of all, Rajesh. And as we stand in a very very disturbed kind of a situation where we are moving away from any trade rules, yet we are trying to create trade rules. Now Trump comes up with his ideas every day, and some of them he again goes backward in those ideas. Like now he has said that tariff may not be imposed on goods which are under the trade agreements with Mexico and Canada. That's the latest development. So where it stands, if you look at a country like Vietnam, which has a trade agreement with America, maybe today is more protected, or Korea maybe today is more protected than who we are, who doesn't have a trade agreement with the US. So not having a trade agreement is kind of robbing our level of protection. Also, if you look at our importance of US in our trade basket, then why are we so worried about Trump? It is one of our largest export market, not only in goods and services. And how Trump is actually doing his tariff negotiations are a little unpredictable, because he is using them against national security for drugs with Mexico, or with the kind of EU directive on regulatory things. Some of the things were maybe not as bad for India, because EU is now kind of withdrawing from the EU due diligence directive, the harshness of its directives, and thinking twice before it does anything, when it almost thought that it would kind of bring in the new green revolution with everything going green, and it will talk about whatever it wants has to be implemented in terms of ESG. Now if you look at other countries, they are reacting differently. China is talking about a reciprocal tariff. In this situation, I think politically we are giving the right signals. And also, to certain extent, look at our budget. We talked about US products. We talked about reducing duties in pharmaceutical. And even before Trump, to be very fair to our own government, even before Trump, if you look at the budget speech last year in July, it talks about tariff rationalization, invited duty rationalization. So India being a high tariff country, and we kind of get ambushed on our high tariff, uh, which we use as a tool, which we use as a negotiating device in the trade agreement. We spend a lot of time on that. Apart from earning revenue through tariff, which can be compensated from other areas like GST, I think that kind of a concept that tariff is a very big thing will go away with Trump kind of using or misusing tariff for multiple purposes.
Now, let's for a moment. You said there are countries which have got bilateral trade agreements with the US, and therefore, at this point in time, they seem protected. There are countries which do not have any such agreement and would always push for redressal of issues in a multilateral forum like WTO. Some of these countries face reciprocal tariffs, like Mexico, Canada, China, and India as well. And then there are some countries with whom there were trade deals, but they have been given up in the past also. Suppose come April 2nd, Trump goes ahead with the reciprocal tariffs. Which are the sectors that are going to be the hardest hit? How big is really going to be the impact?
Uh, First of all, when you look at the reciprocal tariff, how Trump wants to develop the reciprocal tariff is basically still a mystery. Okay, because where he puts in, why he puts in is still a mystery. Now look at some of the sectors where US has a strong interest in India, and one of the sectors they have come out very openly saying the agri-food sector. In agri-food, India actually has a very high tariff. Like if I go, and it is very protectionist in some areas like dairy. Like dairy, the US actually had a 40% tariff. India has over 150% tariff. Initially we said that we would not allow the entry of the of money. We kept on these high tariffs for the US on the grounds that we have poor farmers and stuff like that. But I don't think in dairy it works. In many of the dairy products, time and again US have kind of negotiated lower tariffs, and even without an FTA, there have been cases where certain specific products have been given lower tariff to the Americans from time to time. Uh, let's say apples, the tariff when it was 13%, we had reduced it to 15% to the US. We continued it with it for some time. Then there is a fight between India and US withdraws the GSP, we withdraw the tariff. So this tariff between India and US in agri product is not a new concept. We have been playing around. And if I may go back, Rajesh, a little bit, signing a mini deal with certain trade partners was always in the card with India, and many economists have always said that it is good to go for a mini deal with the US. And the reason they wanted a mini deal was that a comprehensive US agreement requires a lot of regulatory commitment, which India finds difficult to meet. So therefore, a mini deal maybe in goods and services, all these visa issues, very, very limited ask list with the US, frankly speaking, because if you look at the US market, it is a relatively open market. So on our side, we had a limited ask list. On their side, they had a massive ask list. And if you want to really look through their ask list, you have to look at the USTR report, which
Yeah.
they come out every year. And if you look at the report in the last 10 years, India chapter is becoming thicker and thicker. So the intensity in which they go deeper into the policy is where you would see the negotiation. So item wise negotiation, now coming to item wise negotiation, is not a new phenomenon. We did a mini deal with Australia, we did a mini deal with Thailand. So doing a mini deal is not a new concept. And India was very much in both sides, I must say. Even the US
So,
level of
so, so
policy makers.
just to make it clear, when you say mini deal essentially is that you do not enter into a comprehensive trade agreement. I mean,
Ah,
which often
let me
ends up covering everything else. A mini deal, in some cases, it could be very sector specific, or a little more than sector specific, right?
Mini deal will be something where, like India, I will give you some examples to demonstrate. Like India, Thailand, early harvest had only 82 product categories. If you look at India, Australia, it touches upon many things. Like it touches upon goods, services, investment, but left all the controversial sectors for future negotiations. So whatever was difficult, let's not talk about it. To a certain extent, the US mini deal is also looking at either side of the product categories where you have an export interest. So basically, the negotiations is like the one that they negotiated mangoes for Harley Davidson. If you may have read that always in the newspaper. So there they kind of put a ban on our mangoes, and we said please remove the ban and we will go through the process. Okay, said they said okay, fine, allow Harley Davidson. So the negotiations may be within the same group of commodities, like agriculture to agriculture. They may be a cross group of commodities, or they can be even that we may negotiate, okay, fine, give me, I'm willing to give you dairy, but please allow my IT professionals a little bit of stability, to not be so bully on the mode 4. And if you see Trump has been pretty open on the mode 4. So he's not taking away all the goodies, he is giving you some goodies. So he is telling you that look, if you have studied in the US and all those stuff, I'm going to give you a direct green card. So look at the goodies he is giving vis-a-vis the threats he is putting, because that's how the negotiations happen. So you may be so we already reduced it on whiskey. I mean, who knows that why would you reduce it on whiskey for the US and not for the UK? That's we don't know. But now that whiskey is reduced, with they may come for the wines. So whiskey, wines, almonds, apples will be negotiated against maybe steel and aluminium. So that's how you negotiate. So it can be within product, it can be across products. That's what he wants to look at.
So tell me, as you explained, Trump's notion of reciprocal tariffs is not just exactly that, let's say, we impose 20% duty on Apple imports from US. Reciprocal tariff doesn't mean that US will impose 10% import duty on Apple. They may do that vis-a-vis certain other products. So, they could do that with steel that is being imported from India. They could do that with pharmaceutical products. So reciprocal doesn't mean good to good matching, right?
No.
So we don't and therefore what Trump will target, we don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know. But one thing is, it is not good to good matching. It may not be good to good matching. That is where Trump has been very clear. And that is where Canada has been very clear. Canada said, if you put tariff on my X product, I'm going to put tariff on the wine, on orange juice. So, look at the selective products that they are targeting. And the products target that Canada did was also not only looking at the product category, but also sensitivities, constituencies that have voted for Trump. So the way you discuss the tariff and you negotiate the tariff is very geostrategic. And Trump is going to negotiate tariff, and US has earlier also negotiated tariff across products, like, and he's very open. I negotiated mangoes for Harley Davidson, and it was actually true, they did it. So they may now put it on our textiles and apparels, because an industry which will go bonkers if they put a tariff there. Steel, aluminum may impact them much more, but apparel, it's a final product. Steel is still an intermediate product. So therefore, you need to also think about in which sector they are going to put the tariff. And if they put the tariff in a certain sector, that is going to hurt certain communities. So it can hurt the producers if it is the intermediate tariff, and ultimately the consumers, or it can directly hurt the consumers, and consumers then decide to choose. If there is a tariff on a food product from India, a consumer may decide to choose, okay, let me take it from Sri Lanka, maybe tea. So there is a lot of things that we need to think through. So that is where we talk about this tariff being a barrier, and then tariff can be negotiated against other things. Let me give you an example. Lo- Around 15-20 years ago, Indian organic market was not developed, and Americans and Europeans wanted organic food products, and they were willing to give unilateral recognition. So they gave unilateral recognition. We were happily selling in their market. When our market developed and they wanted to sell in our market, we don't want to give them bilateral recognition. In fact, FSSAI doesn't have a system to bring in imports of organic. So we are saying we are developing the system, this that. Now they have a strong interest in this, in a bilateral flow. APITA has a strong interest to get a unilateral recognition. So both sides are sitting. They may come up with, say, look, I want to give you a bilateral recognition, and India may need to sit and decide, fine, it is good, it is not a bad thing to have a bilateral recognition from organic. It's a niche product. We have to just put in place some systems. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already have a system in place, which is APITA. We have to kind of extend it to the imports. But while it may look, Rajesh, very simple for us to move policies between multiple agencies, food import is on somebody, food export is on somebody, somebody is doing something, is basically a rocket science. If I don't want to do things, I can make it a rocket science. So when he has given an April 2 deadlines, and he is asking, like, move all your export, and he's giving hints like agriculture. Now agriculture means you move your MPTA, APITA, spice board, tea board, coffee board. You understand, everybody together in a same plane, along with your FSSAI and EIC, because we haven't streamlined the process. And there the USDA is sitting with a streamlined process and documentation. So in some cases, we have a real worry. Because not because we cannot adhere to the demand, but because we haven't systematically cleared our processes, import and export process, and probably now is the time to do that.
I mean, actually, you have argued in the past that agri-food is an area where uh, a pact could be mutually beneficial for both sides, provided we get our homework and we do our homework well enough, and provided we get our house in order. Uh, Let me ask you, in all of this, because you have worked with governments and multilateral organizations, how well prepared are we to deal with whatever has been the fallout of Trump's presidency?
See, India has been trying out with opening up of sectors. If you look at the last 3-4 trade agreements, if you look at the India Australia agreement, we tried to open up wines. Okay, sensitive, it was so sensitive. Now if you look at India UAE, we have a digital trade chapter which was considered. But what India tends to do is, every forum India tends to have a very bargaining position in the past. And USDA goes by history. Like for us, the policymakers change every 5 years, 7 years, but they go by the history. They would not forget that we bargain food security for trade facilitation, and sometimes in the multilateral forum, we were bargaining only with the Americans. If you think about trade facilities versus food security, was only, and trade facilitation is such an agreement which was beneficial for India, but we still bargained. Now that we are thinking about, now suppose if they have to bargain, no moratorium, I'm giving you they are out of JSI, we are out of JSI, which is the WTO framework for negotiating the e-commerce. Uh, and in IPF also, we are not part of the IPF trade pillar. So we will be um, uh, we will be always, what we are trying to do is to always bargain things out of the Americans. This is the first time when, you know and during his previous presidency also, he was always hard hit on bargains and on policy measures. If you
Mhm.
look at that DPIIT note and the Walmart Flipkart merger and unhappiness, one fine morning, the withdrawal of the GSP, like, he doesn't leave rooms for discussion if the American interest is hurt. So now, by now, we should be aware that apparently what we do should not look at directly hard hitting an American interest. That is first
Mhm.
point. Second point is we should show an intention to do change. Third is that we need to look at which change is not very difficult for us. Maybe if we open up the, powder milk market, or the milk market, it can impact our small and medium milk producers. But if we open up milk product or high end cheese or GI product, is it going to do the same impact? I don't think so. So you can really think about de minimis, and America is also giving you a hint. They This is the first time they came back and said that open with a quota.
Yeah.
So you can
The Commerce Secretary talked about it.
so
You
they
know,
are also they are telling that, okay, fine, we are not going to kind of swarm your market. If you are worried about your farmers, allow us entry with a quota. And so that means they are not looking at a big bang bringing things in there. Emotionally, they don't want to hurt India. They don't want, but emotionally they also doesn't want to hurt the American interest. That the first priority is to protect the American interest. And many companies, American is just one side. If you talk to foreign companies, number of them has said that our tariffs are too high and it is very difficult for them to establish presence.
but as you said, optics also are very important in all of this. Do you think the optics from the other side have been the right ones? I mean, for example, Donald Trump threw up a figure. He said the deficit with India is 100 billion, uh, whereas trade goods and services put together, our deficit, the United States trade deficit with India is about what, $45 billion. Then he calls you king of tariffs. Uh, I mean, he has been very dismissive. If I don't want to use the word disrespectful every now and then. So, in such a situation, what is the confidence India can have that it would get a fair deal if it goes for a trade agreement?
I think that, look, the approach to it is not, see, basically, if you look at other countries like Mexico, Canada, and some of their approaches, each of them have reacted differently to what the US is saying. Yeah, so there is no commonality in the approach on how you can react. But in some cases, what I think is that he is fairly favorably disclosed to our top leadership, and that is very important, that the top leadership should get together. And with the US and China not getting together, there is a dependency on India, be it for the US technology companies, be it for the IT sector. So there is a bit of the dependency on India, which we cannot really, under give up. So that is the point we need to think, that they have a dependency on us, we have a dependency on them. And why don't we use this opportunity to do a little bit of our homework and get what we want? But getting a confident mini deal out of this current regime, which secures maybe our IT sector and the sector of our interest, exporting sectors to the US, is not bad for India. That's a big export market. Even if we can get some security on the top 10 export items, and for that, we have to give something to them. is not a bad idea. But having said that, it's not important for a big country like India to bulge to pressure. I would suggest that, but we need to do our homework. And sometimes, even giving mangoes and Harley Davidson doesn't make much of a difference. Like, end of the day, what is the, suppose if you put zero duty on Harley Davidson, how many Indians are going to buy it? So sometimes we put duties just not for the fact that it is like 150% duties on automobiles. But I don't know why we put 150% on duties on automobile. So basically, bringing it down, maybe with the Trump kind of a push, is not bad for the country. You have to look at the wider interest of why some things we do and where we need to have a protection.
Now, let me ask you how optimistic you are that we would actually be able to work out a trade deal. Nobody is talking about a comprehensive trade agreement, right? I don't hear that also coming from the American side. Also, they would also be okay with what you are describing as a mini deal. But what are the chances of securing such a mini deal? What we hear from newspaper headlines is that fall of 2025 is what they're aiming at, and that has to be clear now that okay, we are heading toward a trade deal, and which is what can then persuade the Trump administration to hold back any announcement on reciprocal tariffs on April 2 against India. Is my understanding right? I mean, this is the way we are kind of going about it.
Many trade deal or a many negotiation, if we are able to launch it before April 2, will definitely, then tariff discussions don't come on April 2. And that's the kind of a feeling that is on either side. Now, there are 3 points here. That first point is India announced many deals, and the Diwali deal, you may have heard about the UK mini deal, Diwali deal. It didn't happen. So India is also sometimes we announce and we don't succeed. So that I don't think that USD is unaware. So they will be monitoring it. Now there are 4 or 5 things they would like to work around the
They have
tariff.
already said, we want everything on the table. There has
They
been a
want
statement to that
yes,
effect.
if they don't get anything on the table that to be closed by April 25, they will not rest. Now the point is that what encompasses the mini deal, that is very important, Rajesh, because one of the bigger issues that the US has with India is not, it spans goods, services and investment. Tariff is only a tool for the good sector, but what about services and what about investment? Because India walked out of the investment agreement, they could not do it, so they have a bigger issue. Now what they bring to the plate and what we can agree on, what they bring to the plate is very important, and what we also take to them. But US is not a very high tariff country, so if we what we can actually ask for is more reciprocal concessions in terms of non-tariff measures. Like Apita has already announced, like, I want my unilateral organic recognition to extend to processed food, but Americans are not going to give it to us. They would want a bilateral. So if we are ready with a bilateral, tick, you have ticked one box, like that. So at one point in time, we need to think what is good for us. If a bilateral will not be bad for us also, because we can bring in the ingredient, process in India, sell in America. So that's a possibility. You can create those supply chains. But now we have to think and look at those product specific supply chains which can be developed with the American companies, where India can play a bigger and better role in their value chains. And we get and that, I think, will be good for the country if we give it a clear thought and take a value chain approach, not like your mango, my Harley Davidson, but more of a value chain approach where we can fit into the value chains of these companies.
Thank you very much. There are so many issues, and we can't complete them in one conversation. And I'm pretty sure this is not going to die down so soon. We will come back again. Thank you very much, Arpita. And as I said, the key phrase or key takeaway from all of this is that in every adversity there is an opportunity, and if in this adversity called Trumpnado, if there is an opportunity, that opportunity, in order to be cashed in on, requires diligent homework. What we need to ensure that we get our homework done diligently, and we follow it up with some smart negotiations with the Americans, which is when our interests can be protected, some of their interests can be served, and at the end of it, we can have a more sustainable and beneficial relationship between the two largest democracies of the world. Thank you very much for our audience. Thank you for your patience and watching us. And if you like the show, please subscribe to us, press the bell button, and share it with your peers and friends.